And I just want to share with you quickly what the next 6 weeks are going to be all about. For the next 6 weeks, we'll be unpacking the book of Numbers, looking at all of the Torah portions that's relevant to the people of Israel and all that they would experience for 40 years in the wilderness. And that's effectively the next 8 Torah portions. It begins with, of course, Israel assembling. Now, it begins in chapter 1 of Numbers, talking about God taking a census. I want us to understand that the word census there is very, very different than what we think. We think of a census, what do we think about? But that's not the word. The word in Hebrew is rush. And Jim, what does the word rush mean? Head. So that word rush is what, for whatever reason, in our Bibles, is translated as census. The word rush means head, leadership, 432 times in the Bible. 7 times in the Bible does it mean census. So what can we take away from that? Well, I prayed about it because I didn't know what to make of it. So 432 times, the word rush means head or leadership. And 7 times it's census. I think it's very clear. After praying about it, it's talking about the leadership being counted. The heads of households, the head of households that are being counted, being assembled first of all, but counted. We see that in the. I had it set to read it for you. We see that we see it in the same chapter, where God counted like 665,000 men, heads of households, and that's the census. So the word census there is not what you think it is. The word census simply means heads of households, leaders. So God took a census. He counted the heads of households, those who will lead in the battle. And there were 685,000, I believe it was the amount. So tonight's Torah portion really begins that journey from Mount Sinai, where God assembles all of Israel in martial array in preparation for entering into the land. Of course, we know that 40 years after, they did enter into the land, but that was not God's intention. And we'll examine this carefully over the next 8 weeks. God's intentions were that they would simply enter into the land from the south, Kadesh Barnea, and take the land and possess it little by little. You know, miat is what it says. Little, slowly take the land. Israel's rebellion is what took them into the wilderness for 40 years. It is Israel's rebellion that caused us to have the book of Numbers. Because 80% of the book of Numbers has to do with the rebellion of Israel and what they would experience for 40 years in the wilderness. You see, so just to take away from that quickly, our obedience to God, our careful obedience to His Word is critical, especially for those of us in leadership. It were the very same leaders who rebelled at God, the Rush, the very same leaders who rebelled against God at Kadesh Barnea. So you see, for leadership, for those of us who are in a position of leadership, see yourselves as servants. Commit yourself to perfect obedience to God. Obey His word carefully. God wants that type of obedience, especially when we're entering into a battle. So we need to think of this story, the Exodus process beyond Mount Sinai. There's an Exodus process that brought Israel to Mount Sinai. The Exodus from Mount Sinai to the land of Israel. This is a battle. It's a battle. It is war. Milchama. This is what God is preparing for Israel. God is prepared to fight in the midst of Israel for Israel. So leadership, be prepared to fight. Take God's direction in your life seriously. Obey His word, and He'll go before you. Do not be afraid of the enemy. Do not let the size of the enemy intimidate you, because this is what happened to Israel. They saw giants of the people of the land. They saw the sons of Anak, the Anakim, and they saw them as giants, unable to overcome them. But Israel, of course, could have overcome them. Joshua and Caleb, well, of course, we know what they said. Caleb in particular was bold and courageous. Joshua was, but Caleb was aggressive when it comes to faith. So we must be like Caleb and Joshua. And we must see the enemies, see the giants that are set before us, and not be afraid. Square our shoulders and know that God has equipped us for the battle and go forward. And I'm speaking to those in leadership. By the way, we're all leaders. I've told you before that we are a congregation of leaders. We are leading in this landscape of Christianity. We are leading in this dry place. And this is a dry place. In a dry land, God has called you to lead. And so for each of us, not just head of households for sure, but fellowship church, you are a leading people. You are rushed. You are. Because you're leading the way. A new direction for God's people. Christianity, you are leading. And there are others like you. Rush. God has taken a census. Be counted. Be included. Be counted. God is doing something different in the earth today than he did 50 years ago. What he's doing today, he didn't do 50 years ago. He's doing it now. This is God's new work. Be counted. You are Rosh. Shabbat Shalom.